Ken, let's talk most valuable player here in the National Football League, where, as we said, start the segment, Tua Tagovailoa, his odds shortened, as one might expect, when one is the trigger man of an offense that scores 70 points. Tua now plus 350 to an NFL most valuable player. Plus 350, 3 games into the season. Patrick Mahomes up next, plus 550. Josh Allen, plus 750. Jalen Hurts, 8-1. Justin Herbert of the 1 and 2 Chargers is 14-1. I guess that happens when you go 40 of 47 for 400-plus yards in the game before. He was amazing. Lamar Jackson, also 14-1. 3 quarterbacks all sit at 20-1. Trevor Lawrence, Brock Purdy, and Ken's guy, Joe Burrow. Dak Prescott is 25-1. I think that's fascinating, given they just lost to Arizona. Deshaun Watson and Jared Goff, both at 40-1. Obviously, there are interesting players after that. I just think this is just where I wanted to draw the line. For people that are wondering, Micah Parsons drops to 50-1 after Dallas loses to Arizona this past Sunday. And honestly, they give up like 1 million rushing yards to James Conner. He should almost be disqualified now after that Cowboys defensive performance, in my opinion. Ken, what say you here on how to bet NFL most valuable player as we head into week number 4?
We've been real light on this award so far. Bet some Burrow a couple weeks ago, and then it looked really bad, and now it looks less bad. And the price still hasn't gotten to what I got of that 2 weeks ago, but that's kind of it for how I bet this so far. And last week I started the analysis of this award by just saying, like, how many people you think can win. And I think this week, I think it would just be the first 9 names, and I don't even like Purdy, so maybe it's 8. Knee-jerk analysis, or like, not like mathematically driven analysis of the 8 candidates would be like, Tua can win, but I'd never bet the price. Mahomes can definitely win, but I'd never bet the price right now. Allen can definitely win, and you could consider betting the price, especially if you, here's a good way to put it, if you like them against Miami, then that's your guy. That's your guy. Immediate might become the favorite if they win. Like, wouldn't be crazy.
And he plays incredibly, yeah. Which he's going to need to do for them to win, obviously.
But, like, I really don't... I've said this yesterday. Everybody has a strong opinion on that game, and I have no idea, and that's why I am not betting Josh Allen right now. But, like, man, it's hard to not like that bet with the idea that, like, if the favored team wins, he flips with Tua. Like, that's pretty awesome. So that would be him. Like, he's appealing for that reason. Hurts is problematic for me from a candidacy standpoint. Like, obviously, like, if they just win every game, then he's a great candidate. But just, like, it just looks clunkier that, like, he's a victim of his success from last year, to be perfectly honest. It's just not quite as good. It's just not quite as good. And even though it's really good, it's not as good. And he's like, that's his problem, honestly. I don't feel like anyone's thinking of him like that at all right now, as like even a contender, and they're winning every game. And it's like, I still don't feel like anyone thinks that that's like what he is. And maybe that's just a victim of their own success from last season, honestly. Like, maybe he has to have an even better statistical season this year for voters to say, like, yes, I will vote you for most valuable player. As long as Justin Jefferson stays in this club, then the other two are valuable, because they can win and he can't. The Vikings are 0-3. They're already talking about trading Kirk Cousins. It's rumored everywhere. They don't have to trade him. That's not the idea. But, like, the fact that we're already going here, and the fact that this team is bad, and that they're 0-3, they'd have to almost win out to have the same record as last year. Like, that's how far we are behind already the pace that was set last season. Be like, well, he might break some records. Cool. Usually record-breaking players don't end up playing for teams that are going to go 3-14. Usually that doesn't happen. So would guess that at some point the stats fall off a little bit, or they just lose every close game the entire season. Also, touchdowns sorely lacking, right, for his statistical performance, and like it's usually a combination of yards and touchdowns. Touchdowns going to be a big problem, I think, for him this year, for the way that the team is likely to play. So as long as it's, and I know you want to say something, Nick, just give me a second. McCaffrey, Tyreek, Jefferson, as long as he's even close to them, that's the wrong part. And that's the angle. It's bet the other two until he goes to 500-1. Like, that's what you're doing.
If you're out there listening, watching, and you're like, hey, like, I bet Justin Jefferson already, or I want to bet Justin Jefferson now, you better hope against everything that the Vikings win this game on Sunday against Carolina. If they lose this game and they're 0-4 and the season's slipping away, there's a legitimate chance Kirk Cousins gets dealt and this team tanks. And then you got Nick Mullins and Jaron Hall to get your guy over the finish line. I think that has to be a part of the handicap here for Jefferson is we don't know, like it's not a lock that Cousins is going to be the quarterback the entire year. And if that's what happens, then like you're dead. Like the bet's over. Like you can't win if it's not Cousins as the quarterback.
Well, and here's a good way to think about it from a team success standpoint. So, like, say they beat Carolina, even. Like, what is it? Teams that start 0-3 make the playoffs 3% of the time. 3%. Cool. Everyone that's basically ever won this award, with like one exception, made the playoffs. So that's the needle you got to thread. Oh, but he can break records. Cool. Like, there's like a 2% chance he's going to win the award. Does being 7-1 mean 2%? Did I miss something in the mathematical calculations here? So just like, yeah, he can win. He can win like every player can win, I guess. But just like understand how narrow the outcome is, like how narrow the, kind of the permutation is, like how specific it has to be for him to win. There's a billion ways some of these other guys could win. They're just really good and they play for really good teams. We're going to be talking about them the entire season while Jefferson's languishing on a team that sucks. So just like until he's out, then the other two are valuable. And once he's out, then we can be done. I will throw in one other player, just like worth thinking about, talking about, whatever. So Chris Jones, I think, is like still really, really interesting here, just because his performance, even in a limited amount of games versus the others, one fewer, has been excellent. And if the sacks can be there, not just disruptive plays, not just pressures, not just like everyone knowing that you're awesome, missing the game, I think, is not something that will end up like if he beats the guys at the end. It won't matter. Like they won't be like, well, we can't give it to you. You missed one game. Like it won't. It will not work like that. It was too long ago. It was only one game. Is not a disqualifier. I think he's the most 2.5 sacks already this year. Obviously behind the edges, but if he can get close enough, I actually think there's a path for him to win. I have not bet him like entering this week's game against the Jets, but I guess I should think about it because they're playing the freaking Jets. And like, what could you imagine a spot to have a better national television Jets offensive line, Zach Wilson? I didn't even think of this before we came on the air. I knew I liked him, but I was like, I didn't put the next week opponent together. Maybe that's the bet. The other player I wanted to talk about, we can do in a second, but let's focus on this for a second. Now that I've said this, do you agree with me that he's the guy to bet right now based on just the matchup? Like, who's going to improve the most this week?
Well, I think kind of like in support of what you're saying right now, Brian Baldinger came on our show yesterday and said this. I did his podcast earlier today, and he said this. I did in the huddle. Chris Jones is basically lining up every week against the weak link of the opposing offensive line. So Kansas City is literally like saying, okay, like the Rams do the same thing with Aaron Donald, and Chris Jones is kind of like Aaron Donald light. He's not as good as Aaron Donald, but like he's not far off. He's playing for Nick Bosa contract money. That's what he's playing for, like one of the richest contracts in the history of football for a defensive player. And Baldy came on the show yesterday, Ken, and he said something that really stuck with me. He said the Kansas City Chiefs are the best defense in the league right now. And if the Chiefs are going to have the best defense in the league, and he's the best defensive player on the best defense in the league, I don't know. I kind of agree with what I'm buying what you're selling right now. I'm catching what you're throwing at me right now.
I know you mentioned off air to us you have some Jets thoughts. You were like, if we have time, I can share them. Boy. And I was basically like, got some good news for you. We have time. And we not only do I get to ask you about this game, this Chiefs-Jets game, Taylor Swift's going to be there. Going to be awesome. Can't wait for all the content that comes out of her appearance. Now I can also yeah, neither we're good. Neither Nick nor I probably expected this line move though. While we've been talking to you, money has come in on the New York Jets, which is surprising because as of right now, Zach Wilson's the quarterback. Now, maybe we get an announcement about somebody else. So Chiefs, 8.5, total 41.5. I know you said you had some thoughts on the Jets. We have about 2 minutes left.
I'm not going to swear on air, so I'll keep it as conservative as possible. But that Simeon move may be the one that ultimately kills this locker room. And like the one shred of hope that Jets fans had coming into this season, all we needed was some mediocre veteran. We didn't need a guy in Trevor Siemian who's like 45th if you sort the league in the last 3 years that hasn't done anything relevant ever in his career, but let alone the last 5 seasons altogether. And so what really drives me nuts about this is last year, post-Pats game, Robert Saleh came out and basically like took the stand for the defense and is like, Zach Wilson's out of here after Zach Wilson threw the defense under the bus. And so you can see now that Robert Saleh is getting footballs thrown at his head in practice and there's fights. why this is such a shame, because now he's gone from benching Zach Wilson and trying to move on to all of a sudden being his biggest supporter, which is just asinine in every way. And so it's a shame what's happening to this Jets team. And I'm surprised to see them taking money in this spot, because you now have this divide within the locker room that should have never happened, all of a sudden happening again. And like, the one case that you can make is like, okay, this defense is going to keep them in games and the Chiefs offense is struggling to get going. Like, I get that. And I can see in a game with a total of 41 where getting that many points can be appealing just from a number standpoint. But the problem I have is that you're seeing the defensive effort kind of taper off. This Jets defense is 20th so far through 3 weeks in terms of down by down defense. You're not only not getting the full effort from the Jets side, but you're not getting top performance. Schedule has been tough, but it's not like there's a break here with Patrick Mahomes on the other side. And so they took money against the Cowboys at a big price and just got smoked. And now they're taking money again against the Chiefs. Like, I just don't see it. And I think we need, I'm speaking as a Jets fan now, not as a bettor, like a 40-0 loss to just end Zach Wilson forever and get over this. Because if this kind of lingers now for a couple more weeks, it's going to ruin the one shred of hope Jets fans have had in the last 15 years. And it's just a damn shame that it's happening with Salah switching turns like this.
That I would say that was like Churn's first take moment. That was like embrace debate. I love that from Churn.
Well, it's just such a shame that this is happening. It's such a shame.
Is it?
Yes, it is. The NFL's better when the Jets are better. Same with the Giants. I think the Giants do well on Monday night, but it's a better league when these New York teams are good.
I would argue it's better when I get to tease the Chiefs to 2.5. I'd argue it's better when I get to do that.
I was going to say, NFL's been doing pretty well over the last decade. Jets been to the playoffs 0 times.